Testament and deal with the words of the Master. Words of the Master this week, talking about where it was said, I'll follow you everywhere. I'll follow you everywhere. Talking about the words of the Master. In the words of the Master, we look at all of the things that Yeshua said. You have a red letter Bible. These are the red letters, the things that he actually said, and we'll talk about the things that he said and also the situations that caused him to say what it is that he said. So we're looking at this week Matthew 8:19 through 22, and also Luke 9:57 through 62. They're both really the same instance, but I think Luke gives us a little more. We'll look probably mostly at Matthew, but we'll reference Luke. But I want to read through them both and then go back. So let's look at Matthew 8:19 and read through verse 22.
So then a certain scribe, having come near to him, Teacher, I shall follow you wherever you go. And Yeshua said to him, The foxes have holes and the birds of the heavens nest, but the Son of Adam has nowhere to lay his head. And another of his top ones said to him, Master, first let me go and bury my father. But Yeshua said to him, Follow me and leave the dead to bury their own dead.
And also, let's look at Luke 9:57 through 62.
Luke 9:57. And it came to be, as they journeyed on the way, that someone said to him, Master, I shall follow you wherever you go. And Yeshua said to him, The foxes have holes, and the birds of the heavens nest, but the Son of Adam has nowhere to lay his head. And he said to another, Follow me. But he said, Master, let me first go and bury my father. And Yeshua said to him, Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and announce the reign of Elohim. And another also said, Master, I shall follow you, but let me first go say goodbye to those in my house. But Yeshua said to him, No one having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the reign of Elohim.
Okay, very good. So let's go back to Matthew chapter 8, verse 18. Look at a few things here. Okay, so if we look at, first of all, verse 19, go to verse 19 and look at that word there, follow. Follow. That's some akoludio word there in the Greek. Properly, to be in the same way with. Right? To be in the same way with, that is to accompany, specifically as a disciple. Okay, so, it has the idea of a road. When you think about the idea of being in the same way with, you're kind of, there's a togetherness thing that is there. To accompany, to be with somebody. But it's saying specifically as a disciple. Pull up the word study the word study on that. Okay, very good. Because we see kind of the same things to attend, to accompany, to go with, to follow a teacher. And so when we think about the idea of a follower, somebody who is involved in abiding fellowship, it says, with him or with Yeshua. Not only for the sake of learning as a scholar from his teacher, but also for the sake of salvation known or looked for, which present itself in such fellowship. And so when we think about this idea of following after Yeshua, especially in the context of, people being followers of him, when he walked around on the earth, there is an intimate relationship involved there. It's a master-teacher kind of a situation. You say what it is that I'm going to be doing, and then I'll do those things without any kind of deviation. It's a strong commitment. You don't have the opportunity to say, well, I'll do X, Y, Z, but ABC, I'm not so much into that, right? And so he's kind of making this pledge of allegiance, so to speak, to Yeshua. He goes to him and he says, "Teacher, I'll follow you wherever you go." Kind of sounds like Israel. They said, well, whatever you say, we'll do it. But that was before anything was said. You don't really know what it is that you're getting into necessarily to say, I'll follow you wherever you go. Not even knowing where he's going. At this point, it's kind of in the thick of things where, Yeshua, he's almost living like somebody who's on the run. And, you have this scribe who would know, because as a scribe, he's kind of closely connected to the Pharisees, who kind of was, some of the ones who are always kind of seeking after him for one thing or another. And so what Yeshua's response to that is interesting, because in his response, he kind of makes this idea of being a follower of Yeshua really not something that's really desirable, so to speak.
Basically says, take up your cross.
Right. Foxes, these wild animals. Foxes got places to go. Birds, they got places to go, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. And so when he says this, is interesting because it seems like there's a couple ways that you could think about what is going on here with Yeshua's response. Is Yeshua here denying the scribe, or just giving him more information? It's interesting, he talks about these animals who have a place to go and rest, but then kind of in contrast to the animals that have a place to go and rest, Yeshua doesn't have a place to go and rest. But is the fact that he doesn't have a place to go and rest, is it because of people like the scribe who are always coming around trying to ask him for things? Like, is Yeshua somehow putting a type of blame on this scribe for being kind of a reason why he doesn't have a place to rest. Because everywhere he goes, he got people asking him for things and trying to get things and taking from him. I don't know. What do you think?
I think for what he came to do,
Who came?
Yeshua, there ain't much rest you gonna get. For the nature of his work, for what his purpose was, how much rest you really gonna get. So,
Well, oftentimes we see Yeshua speaks to an individual's heart where they don't have to say where it is they're coming from, where he may already know. Now, this scribe may be looking to Yeshua and being with Yeshua as some type of prestige. And say, if I could be one of his followers, that might be something that it might be something of honor. Without actually knowing all the things that involve, and so Yeshua might be just shedding light on this thing and letting him know, like, this might not really be what you want. This might not be what you think it is. And it's interesting that he refers to himself here as the Son of Man. Because we talked about this before. When you think about the Son of Man, it does bring about the idea of the fact of him being a servant. It accentuates his humanity, his humility in one respect. But you also have the idea that the Son of Man is in fact Messiah. And so there's also divinity kind of incorporated in this idea. And so and at one side of the spectrum, you have the idea that he is a man dealing with humanity and carnality, and because of his particular situation, or in spite of the fact that he is Messiah, he's still dealing with these carnal circumstances that he's in, where he doesn't have the things that you would think will go along with his royal position. It's kind of a dichotomous situation.
When he was in verse 18, he's literally about to cross back across the Sea of Galilee. And I mean, we talk about how many times he went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Right, and he's going back and forth, not just for the simple fact of going back and forth, but he's literally in situations where he's fleeing certain situations. I mean, could you imagine? He's like how we look at these famous people, where you can't have like a regular life where you just go and do regular things without there being masses and crowds all around. And so probably one of the main things that he's pointing out, Yeshua that is the fact that, you really have to think about what it is that you're that you're saying that you want to get yourself into, because this isn't just a normal life.
I would say it's like that even now. Whenever I talk to people, they say they want to get immersed, they want to get baptized, they want to convert, they want to change their soul. And it's like, you know, they might have that whole thing, I'm going to follow Yeshua or wherever, but it's like,
Counting the cost.
count the cost.
I just thought about on the day, the happiest day of my life, my wedding day. There's a picture, I don't know where this picture is, and I don't know what you was actually doing, but in folklore, you was counting the cost. I'm 100% sure that's not what you were doing. The photo caught you and your hand was in a certain way where it looked like you was counting with your fingers. But the folklore of the picture, right before you came down and walked down the aisle to meet me under the canopy, is that you was counting the cost of what you was about to get yourself into. You didn't know. You didn't know what you was getting yourself into all of those years ago. But it really is a necessary step that we don't think about. All the things that are incorporated in that step of saying, I will follow you everywhere. What does that even mean? Which you actually should think about. Because people get into a situation without thinking about all of the things that go along with it. Let's read again verse 21. Read 21 of Matthew chapter 8 again for us.
Yeah, Matthew 8:21, and another of his taught ones said to him, Master, first let me go and bury my father.
Okay, this is interesting because verse 21 it says another one who. So this guy was like unto the other guy. Right? 21 it says and another of, and then it says of his taught ones or disciples. So this is somebody who has pledged themselves to Yeshua. He might have just pledged to Yeshua. We don't know what the time frame is, but the text is calling him a disciple. So he must have had some type of pledging that goes on. And he might have received some initial instruction, because he says, Master, first let me go bury my father. If somebody says that, it seems like somebody would say, why don't you go over and do this or that? And then the response is, well, yeah, I'm gonna do that now, but first. Right? So it seems as if there was some type of initial instruction that was given. And so he was in this other disciple. He was in enough to be called a disciple, but maybe not in enough or long enough to have actualized any real commitment. If we go over to Luke's version, look at Luke 9:60. Read that again. We read it already, but let's read it again because it's the same guy here.
Luke 9:60, and Yeshua said to him, let the dead bury their own dead, but You go and announce the reign of Elohim.
Okay, so in 60, we know what the assignment is. So his assignment is actually to go and announce the kingdom of Elohim. But he's saying first, before I do that, let me bury my father. Now this is interesting because it seems quite harsh of Yeshua to say, leave the dead to bury their own dead. But he's talking to somebody who's talking about his daddy. What's even more interesting is that from a cultural standpoint of those people at that time, to bury someone was an actual duty. And so of somebody, you know, obviously if it's a loved one, but if it was somebody in the community that you found out that they died and they didn't have nobody to bury them, as somebody that was upright, they would do it.
Hey,
Kind of like how the Joseph of Arimathea was in regards to Yeshua. But when we think about what he did in the cultural context, that was his duty to do that. It's interesting when we look at, and I looked at some of these things from the rabbinic writings of the time. It says over here, one who has his dead lying before him is free from Shema recitation, from the prayer of the 18 benedictions, which is the Amida, and from the prayer straps, I guess, which is the tefillin. The bearer of their their relievers are free from, it says it again, whoever digs the pit for a dead person is free in the grave from reciting, it says, so it's different, this here is different kind of rabbinical teachers all saying the same thing, that this duty of burying someone can be looked at as something that can kind of overlook these other important aspects of your quote-unquote religious life. If it is Torah study and an obligatory dead person, which is somebody who would just be some random person not necessarily related to you, who doesn't have somebody to bury them. If it is Torah study and an obligatory dead person, the obligatory dead person takes priority because it says that one stops Torah study to escort a deceased person out and a bride in. Right? So weddings and funerals from a cultural standpoint are kind of this thing that is like elevated from a cultural standpoint. And there was one other thing. There was one other thing. It says, these are the things whose interest a person enjoys in this world, while the main recompense remains due to him for the future world. These are the things: reverence for parents, works of love, peacemaking between persons, and Torah study. Now, the works of love is actually this idea of burying someone. Because there's different instances where they were talking about this idea of burying someone and were calling it these works of love. This idea of making sure that somebody was able to be properly dealt with after their death. And so, all of that being said, the high regard that there was to this idea of burying the dead, and then Yeshua comes along and says, let the dead bury the dead. You follow me. Like, this is like a highly controversial thing. Like, within the oral traditions, we know that in the Torah it talks about the Levites, specifically says that the Levite cannot be defiled by their family, their parents even. But somehow they was able to interpret it in a way that they wasn't able to bury their kinfolk, but they could find a way to bury the obligatory dead person, the person who didn't have anybody to bury them. I'm just saying that just to say that there was such a high regard to this idea of taking care of this person that had died and didn't have nobody to bury them. And this situation where Yeshua is saying that the dead buried the dead. But in doing so, it's giving you an idea of who he is and the importance of him. And it's also causing you to think back to this idea of what it actually even is to be alive or dead. Because if you're literally dead, you're obviously not burying anyone because you're already dead. Right? But if we're talking about those that are spiritually dead or those that are disconnected from the Father, those ones are dead. So also in the culture, we know that somebody's going to put your people in the ground. If you don't do it, somebody's going to do it.
They might shake their head.
They might look at you funny after the fact. But it's not like he's not going to get to where he needs to be. Somebody's going to do it because that was something that they held in high regard. So Yeshua's saying, look, I'm on a mission. Like, we're doing things. If you want to say that you're following after me, you can't have no thing that you put above the mission. It don't matter what it is. Your father gonna get in the ground. Don't you worry about that. Somebody gonna do it. Because that was part of the culture. That's what they did. Somebody was gonna do it. You don't have to sit up here and worry about that. So when you think about it kind of from a cultural perspective, even though it kind of heightens this thing that Yeshua is saying, it also softens it at the same time. Because we can see how important it is for someone to do that, but also we're also able to see that if the family isn't able to do it, somebody is going to do it, and they'll be just as adamant about having it done as if, it was their own people. And so it's kind of like, it kind of does two things here at once when we think about kind of the historical and cultural context.
We simply got a comment here. It says, reminds me of the Secret Service or folks in the Army. The expectation is that you vow your life with your wage is expected. No questions asked.
Yeah, when you think about I've never been in the armed forces, but I understand what they do. And they all have the, kind of boot camp situation where they're essentially, they break you down, they break you all the way down, and then they build you back up the way that they want for you to be. Which, when you think about it, really is kind of a necessary process because they want to indoctrinate you with their, ideals. Like, you're now government issue. You now belong to the government, and the things that we hold at high esteem, you hold those same things now at high esteem. They break you down and they build you back up again. And so what Yeshua, rightly so, I think that the idea is that you can't have anything that you hold at a higher esteem than Yeshua and his plans, or else you're not truly following after him. And so, that's what we see right there. Yeshua's like, your instruction now is to proclaim the gospel. And regardless of what it is that the guy is saying, he's saying, okay, all right, I'll do that, but first, already he done messed up. Like, this is not how the things goes in that master-teacher relationship. When you think about the idea of following after me, following after Yeshua, it's the answer is not, okay, I'll do that, but I gotta first go.
I mean, if he went, he probably never was going to come back.
Huh?
I said, if he went, he probably never was going to come back. There's always going to be another thing, and another thing, and another thing.
If we went and did it,
I
yeah.
remember, someone, I was in college, they said, I came to Pittsburgh before college. They said, I want to live through college and experience my life, and then, they agreed with everything. They said, that all sounds right.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go and do my college life and live my life, and then I'll come back. And then graduation happened, and then they moved on to the next thing. It just, you know what I mean? It's like you put it off. You're kind of delaying something that you really didn't want all the way in the first place.
Right.
So he really, I hate to say it, I never joined the military because I was like, I'm not going to want to run up a hill and I know people are shooting down the hill. Which just doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? But they need people to do that, right?
Yeah.
They need people to follow the line.
It's a necessary thing,
It's a
but
necessary thing. I'm just not willing
I
to.
feel the exact same way.
I'm just not willing to do that, right?
Somebody got to do it, but I don't want to be that person.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's kind of like, following Yeshua is like a blind following thing. People aren't really,
Yeah.
it's something that you really got to count.
And it's not totally, and I think that what he's doing here is kind of pulling the blinders off a little bit to let you know that if you're not fully dedicated to Yeshua and his plan, then there's no need for you to even come in. Like in Luke, he's just like saying, another, he said in verse 61 in Luke, another, so it's this other person, yeah, I'll follow you, but let me just go say bye to my people first. Right? This wasn't even that serious. It wasn't even about like burying somebody. All right, let me just go say goodbye to my people real quick, and then we could get to it. But that wasn't good enough. But it's the same concept, is that we have to first put Yeshua and his mission and plan above everything. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not worthy in the first place. Because it's a total commitment. It's not like a part-time job. Like this is the full-time job, and then everything else comes after. If you're not able to properly prioritize Yeshua and his plan, you haven't fully committed. You got this person saying, I'll follow you wherever you go. But what Yeshua is saying is like, really? Will you? Will you though? Let's see.
But I'll do this, but.
They all had a butt. Each one of them had a butt. The one guy was like, I gotta bury my dad. The other person was like, but I gotta say goodbye to my peeps. But if we go over to Luke, let's go over to Luke. Over to Luke 9. And let's read again 61 and 62.
Luke 9:61. And another also said, Master, I shall follow you, but let me first say goodbye to those in my house. But Yeshua said to him, no one having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the reign of Elohim.
Okay, very good. And so when you think about, you know, I'm not a farmer. I'm a city folk. But when you think about the way that they did these plowing things, you know, they had like some kind of animals, you know, pulling. Then they didn't have like the little tractors and stuff, the vehicles obviously. They had these animals that would be the force. And then they would have like a kind of a thing that was tied to the animal, the plow thing that you would kind of, you know, kind of direct and steer to kind of dig out the soil or whatever. And so the force and the pull was coming from the animals, but you had to hold on to that thing, and while it's like digging down into the ground, you would kind of like be directing the thing. But you had to really be involved in the thing if you was going to, because you know you want to make straight lines to put your seeds and stuff in for your stuff to plant. And so if you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you know that thing's gonna get messed up. And so when you think about what Yeshua is saying over here, it's like you have to be kind of involved fully in the task. If you're not fully doing the task, you're not doing it properly. If you're looking somewhere else and not looking forward, you're not able to move forward in a straight line. So he said you're not even fit for the kingdom. That's interesting because these disciples here, when he's talking about the idea of their task, their instructions that they're given, they're supposed to be the ones that are proclaiming the kingdom to others. And so he said in 62, he's not talking about the idea of other people, which is supposed to be the disciples' task of, calling other people to the kingdom. But he said, if you can't put your hand to the plow and not look back, then you're not fit, he said, for the kingdom of God. Because it kind of brings about kind of this double-minded kind of a situation. Where Yeshua is calling for, again, Yeshua and his plan to be above everything. And so it's interesting when you look at the disciples, at least the 12 disciples, that follow after Yeshua. It shows their level of commitment that they even made it past the life of Yeshua. Well, except for Judas, of course. But for the rest of them, right? I feel like every time I mention Judas, I gotta mention the fact that he was the betrayer, just like the Bible. But except for Judas, the rest of them all saw Yeshua, what happened to him, and they stayed the course. They showed that they was truly committed to the course. And then as the years go on, they started getting, and none of them just died off. They all got killed brutally. But they all kept going and continuing on the master's plan. And so when you think about that level of commitment that they had to have had, even to just make it past Yeshua, well, I guess the fact that he did raise from the dead after 3 days. But they had to make it those 3 days in order to, well, he did say that he was going to come back. But there's a great level of commitment that is necessary when you say that you're going to be a follower of Messiah. And so Yeshua here is reminding these people, these new disciples coming in, that, this is not a light thing. And so when we think about our life, in Messiah, which we become followers of Messiah, we become disciples of Messiah. We have to decide in our life what really is our priority. Do we just live our life, our day to day, and when we get a chance, we do things that are connected to the kingdom work? Or is Yeshua's plan for us our number one priority? If it's not your number one priority, then I don't know that we're fulfilling this thing that we see over here with these disciples. And again, it's not different just to think about the fact that, Yeshua's walking around, he's literally discipling these people like one-on-one type of a situation. The idea is that even right now, when we come to the Master Yeshua to come and change our life and take us from being on the outside to the inside, our main purpose in life then becomes the kingdom. Every single one of us. Your main purpose in life becomes the kingdom. And then everything else in life then revolves around that. And I think that when we look at these examples of, especially Yeshua speaking to this new disciple in regards to him, the burying of his father, he says it in other places, but we can see it right here, that not even your physical family comes before Yeshua. Nothing comes before the plan of the Master. And so we have to be able to get to a place of understanding how to rightly prioritize our lives and not try to purposefully or inadvertently putting Messiah second to anything. We have to be sure that we're putting the Master first in all things. Yeshua said already at this place in time, he already said, seek you first the kingdom and his righteousness, and then all other things will be added unto you. When we live a life that's dedicated to the Master Yeshua and those things which the Most High considers right, when our focus is rightness, all things will be taken care of. And those all things, is in relation to like our, our basic needs in life. So it's not as if, we kind of just don't think about these other things. They're important, but it's just about what things come first. If the things of the Most High, if the plans of the Master are things that you work in to your situation and not number one on the list, then that's not what he's asking you for. There's going to be room for these other things, but we got to put the Most High first. We got to put the Master first in all of these things and work in these other parts. And I think that's kind of the main point of what we see over here in these verses. All right, so does anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments about any of this before we close up here?
I just think that people think, a lot of times they think that they really believe that they're going to follow.
What?
So I think people really believe that they're going to follow, or that they are committed to signing up for the cause
Until life happens.
until life happens.
Yeah. Yeah, then you find out. It's interesting, kind of the way things go. It's easier to say a thing than it is to do a thing. And a lot of times we see like this guy, he had something to say. Wherever you go, I'll follow you. And then life happens. Oh, I wonder what happened. Like we don't see exactly what happened, but we see that there was a choice that had to be made. I wonder if he made it. And the same thing can be said for you and I. We can stand somewhere and say that we're going to follow after Messiah no matter what, and then life happens, and then where are we going to be at?
Yep.
It's kind of like the Torah portion. The choice is put before you. You can obey the Most High and His will and His ways and be blessed, or you can not and be cursed. There's two options, and you have a choice. Which one's it going to be?
Yeah, so as the Torah says that there's nothing new under the sun. So every single one of us are following in the footsteps of somebody, right? There's nothing new. And we are in a day and age where it's just constant wickedness. And people are following, whether they know it or not, whether they admit it or not, they're following people to death. I mean, it is difficult to do things the right way in this day and age, but there's no better option we have than Yeshua, to follow Yeshua to life, or follow every little thing out here to death.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the good part about it is that it is a singular road, right? The way unto righteousness is a straight way. And all these other ways, they different ways, but they all go one place. And so it's a basic, simple choice that can be made. But as you say, it is something that, it's been this way for a very long time. You can either choose to live or to die. You can choose to be on the right standing with the Most High, or not. I mean, for me, it seems like it's an easy choice. As soon as I understand that I'm dealing with the creator of everything, I'm pretty sure that he knows, the right way to go about things.
It does.
I can't be wrong by following after that.
Right.
And so, we
I know. Sure.
okay, shalom. We have to be able to make that choice and be kind of steadfast in that choice, and always putting Yeshua and his plans above everything. And when we do that, we don't even have to kind of be worried about things when that's the life that we live. When your life is about putting the master first in everything, I can't verify too many things. But I can verify if you put the master first in everything, you can't go wrong.
True.
I can't put a guarantee on many things,
Like that.
but I can put a guarantee on that.
All right, I'll back that up too. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll true. That's true.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody have any last questions or comments? Besides Art. What? Megan, I hope this is a good one. Go ahead. Oh, I wasn't able to say goodbye because it was the same idea. Because it's kind of like if I say, Ari, go and fill up my cup with ice and bring me some water. And you say, okay, but first, let me do this or that. I don't want you to do this or that. I want you to go put my cup, fill it with ice, and then get me some water, and then you can do whatever you want to do. Well, not anything you want to do, but you need to take care of the thing that I'm requiring of you if I'm requiring something of you.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that when the master calls and you accept that call, you can't then say, okay, I'll do it, but let me do this first, because you're essentially,
Put him on the back burner.
yeah, you're
Making him secondary.
yeah,
Yeah.
You know how Ori is, she'll do something and she'll forget.
oh yeah, all the time,
Oh,
all the time.
yeah.
You do that all the time, and then you can't even remember what it is that I had asked you to do in the first place, because you didn't go straight away and do the thing. So the same thing is true when we deal with a life with Messiah. We got to put him first.
That's right.
But I say, yeah, I just thought about it, like, you know, when we're all born, you know, it's literally, we're by ourselves. We come in alone, all the relationships that we have, we build, it's all fine and dandy, but it's, you know, you were created, you were given your soul and spirit by, you know, the Most High, and that is your focus. That should be your focus, and when, you know, Yeshua tells you, "No, come follow me," ain't no saying goodbye, burying the dead. All of those things are going to take care of itself. This is the greatest mission you have. I'm here now, and it's time for this to happen. And you gotta be like, you gotta drop it. You gotta just drop it all and say, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Luke 9:23. It says, and he said to them, if anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his stake daily and follow me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's self-denial. There's a lot of things involved in that you know, that little sentence right there. But the idea is that we have to be able to put Messiah and his things first in all things. And when you think about the idea of taking up that stake, it is about the sufferings and sacrifice. Sacrifice, causing there to be kind of, you know, you're taking something that is yours, that identifies as you, and offering that thing up to the Most High. You know, that's part of what it means when you go and sacrifice these animals. You take this animal, this thing that, you know, for a sin sacrifice, you're taking this thing, and it's a representation of you dying. instead of you dying, this thing is dying kind of in your place. Like this thing, you deserve something, but because of the mercy of the Most High, it allows for this thing to kind of be kind of this proxy for you. But it's like a part of your, it's a part of your assets that you're, offering up. And so it's like you're being diminished by the sacrifice. And so when we think about this idea of sacrifice and self-denial, not seeking for your personal thoughts, ideas, and missions and things to be in the forefront. All of these things are secondary to the main mission in life, which is the kingdom and Messiah and his plans and purposes. All right. Okay, so that being said, we will be done for right now. Y'all willing, we'll be back on next Shabbat to continue with the words of the Master and also the Torah portion. We, did I put the feast schedule in the thing over there? You probably could be able to pull it up from
Yeah.
from the slides section. The share screen, right? Did you find it? Did you put it up? Okay, it's like a little delay. All right, so we have actually. Here, can you maximize that? Trumpets is on Thursday, September the 5th. We'll be at Flint Pavilion, Settlers Cabin, from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We'll be out there. We'll have our Day of Trumpets gathering there. We'll have some festivities. We're going to try to stream from there. We'll see what happens. I can't remember if we had the reception there. Yeah. So that's what we'll be. Wednesday we'll go and see the moon, and Thursday we will be at the pavilion. So y'all willing, if you can physically be there, hallelujah. If not, you can tune in on YouTube. All right, so that being said, we'll say for now, Shabbat Shalom.